In 1227, Genghis Khan, the leader who organized the nomadic Mongol tribes and built one of the largest land empires in history, dies in China at the age of 65. Genghis Khan was born as Temujin, the son of a minor Mongol chieftain. After the death of his father when he was a teenager, Temujin became a feared warrior. His military prowess and charisma allowed him to gather followers and forge alliances with other Mongol chieftains. Those who did not join him willingly were defeated in battle. He then often executed the tribal nobility and offered the rest a choice: obedience or death. Most chose to join him. By 1206, Temujin was the leader of a huge Mongol confederation and was granted the title Universal Ruler, or Genghis Khan. A major factor in his military success was his people's ability to breed vast numbers of horses. All of Genghis's warriors were mounted, creating the most mobile and versatile army in the world in the 13th century. His empire stretched into northern China to the south, the Sea of Japan to the east, and to the Caspian Sea to the west. The exact cause of Genghis Khan's death remains uncertain, but most historians believe it was from a pandemic disease. Injuries sustained in a fall from a horse the previous year may also have been a factor. His final resting place remains a mystery. Genghis's Mongol empire continues to grow after his death, eventually reaching as far as Eastern Europe and Asia Minor. The Mongols conquer China, with his grandson Kublai Khan establishing the Yuan dynasty. When Marco Polo makes his famous visit to the Far East, it is the royal court of Kublai Khan that receives him. In 1612, the trial of the Pendle Witches, one of Britain's most famous witch trials, begins in Lancaster in northern England. The trials take place during a period of intense fear and superstition regarding witchcraft in England. At the time, such trials are relatively common, driven by both social and religious factors. 12 people, mostly women from two families, the Demdikes and the Chattoxes, were accused of using witchcraft to murder 10 people and harm others, many of them locals. The Pendle Witches take their name from Pendle Hill in Lancashire, which is near where the families lived. 10 of them face a 2-day trial in Lancaster, while another was tried a few weeks earlier in York. The 12th person accused was Elizabeth Southerns, a woman in her 80s and the leader of the Demdike family. Old Demdike, as she was known, had been regarded as a witch by locals for more than 50 years. However, she died in prison before the trials began. The woman tried in York, Janet Preston, was found guilty and hanged on July 29th. Detailed evidence is presented at both trials, including testimonies from witnesses and confessions obtained under torture or threats. Old Demdike's 9-year-old granddaughter, Jeanette Device, is a key witness for the prosecution. Most 17th century trials would not have allowed a child to be such an important witness at a trial, but England's King James permits the suspension of normal rules of evidence for witchcraft trials. 9 of the 10 tried in Lancaster are found guilty and hanged. Only 1 is acquitted. The Pendle Witches' story is a poignant reminder of the potential impact of hysteria and prejudice. 80 years later, the Salem witch trials occur in Britain's Massachusetts Bay Colony. In 1920, the 19th Amendment, guaranteeing women the right to vote in federal and state elections in the U.S., is ratified by the required 3/4 of the states. America's suffrage movement grew out of the abolition and temperance movements of the 19th century. The 1848 Seneca Falls Convention is a landmark moment in the early days of the movement, with both men and women in attendance signing the Declaration of Sentiments, a treatise penned by Elizabeth Cady Stanton and based on the Declaration of Independence. It proclaimed, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal." The participants also passed a resolution declaring that it is the duty of the women of this country to secure to themselves their sacred right to the elective franchise. Some publicly ridiculed the efforts of the Seneca Falls Convention. The scorn was harsh enough to cause some backers of women's rights to withdraw their support. Nevertheless, Seneca Falls marked the beginning of the women's suffrage movement in America. Susan B. Anthony became an important figure in the movement in the second half of the 19th century, famously breaking the law by voting in the 1872 presidential election. She was fined $100, a fine which she refused to pay. During World War I, Lucy Burns and Alice Paul directly targeted U.S. President Woodrow Wilson, demanding the vote with protests outside the White House. Facing mounting pressure, Wilson called a special session of Congress in May 1919. In previous years, Congress had voted down the amendment 6 times. However, this 7th time was the charm. The amendment then went to the states for ratification. A vote in the Tennessee House of Representatives puts the amendment over the threshold, with a deciding vote cast by Harry T. Byrne, a 24-year-old legislator who reputedly changes his vote after receiving a note from his mother. Her message includes the words, "Don't forget to be a good boy." Byrne listens to his mother. The 19th Amendment is formally adopted into the Constitution 8 days later, on August 26, 1920. But it is not until the Voting Rights Act, 45 years later, that all women in the U.S. truly have the right to vote.